It's been called a meeting to order. We do have a quorum. Mike is refereeing makeup basketball games and Lori is out of town and Chris is horrible sick, so we have the four of us. Chris said if we got in a bind, we could call him, but it looks like we're in good shape, so since we do have a quorum, I'll go ahead and have Mr. Hanson lead us in the pledge, please.
I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we have three sets of minutes to approve. We have the early meeting from January 13th, when we selected the candidates we were going to interview for the superintendent position. Then we have our regular meeting following that on January 13th. And then we have the special meeting on January 28th, when we interviewed the candidates and made a selection. So if you haven't had a chance to look at them, please do. If you're good with them, somebody could make a motion.
Well, I had one error, but I already told Suzanne about it. She's fixed it already.
Fixed it, so we're in good shape. I missed that. I'm glad you caught it.
But it just shows I actually read them.
second.
Been moved and seconded to approve all three sets of minutes. Is there any questions or discussion? Those in favor, say aye. Those opposed, the same. Unanimously, is there a food setting here? There it is. Okay, our first item of business, Mr. Hankins, if you would introduce the visitors, please.
Okay, we have Mr. Hanson, and then we have DCLA newspaper and Mr. Truman. Feel like I go.
Welcome, everyone.
Yeah, lots of
Whatever you'd like, you were sitting in one of those chairs.
These guys aren't coming, so yeah.
Okay, the first item of business then is approval of the claims and accounts. Megan, if we want to get the vote, please.
Bright pink sheet. On page 19949, about middle of the page, where hospital and healthcare for 3,348.9, and that's just the February trainer fee, and then some of our PTOT speech language costs for special education services. 19951, the BMO MasterCard for $12,905. There's various things on there, including grants, lots of advanced opportunities. Our CTE teachers are utilizing that money to, create different opportunities in their classroom, those different types of things. You'll see on there is transportation parts for $6,042. But in looking at that, it was quite a few of just various different parts. Some of the most significant charges was they had to replace a water pump, a couple of headlamps, which I was so shocked at the cost of what the headlamps cost in those buses, and heater assembly in one of the buses. And so I know that John and heat is going to be very, very important as we're moving into the next couple of days. But I know that John and Sean are working super hard to keep the buses up and going, and we certainly have run into, lots of just weird little things. And I think that that's probably normal. It's just Sean doing it for the first time, is finding it just never ends. On the second page, 19953 Borderland Security, for $2,000. We're finding that, the current backup, that we had wasn't large enough for what we needed to continue to back up, as obviously, sizes continue to increase with data and all that kind of stuff. We needed to increase, the storage area. Am I correct on that, Paul?
Yes, and this is a bridge check, so they're allowing us to pay this amount until July when we go to the bigger machine
It'll come in the new,
requisition.
the new school year. 19954 for Brown and Thompson Oil Company for $12,911.40. That fuel fill up was about $2.56 a gallon. It's actually quite a ways, or not quite a bit, but it's down from October. It was $2.99. December was $2.79, and so February was $2.56 per gallon. So that is positive. On page 3 at the top, Deer Creek excavation for $3,067.50. That's for snow removal, and the snow just keeps on coming. Poor Jack. I had to talk him off the ledge a couple of times, but he has been morning to night plowing snow, and it gets done with one area, and he has to make his rounds one more time as he comes back around, and he just, fixing machines as they fake, and I just really appreciate him. There was a couple times where you could just see it in his face, but he works hard and it's a good job. So, let's see here, 19962 digital insurance. So that's part of our audit, part of a requirement of our audit. It actually was scheduled to come out in October, but they were sending it to Ramona. And of course, Ramona wasn't getting it. So finally they reached out and were able to connect with Suzanne. So we were able to get that. So that's $2,200, and that will be on top of the audit that will be in the March claims, which I think last year was about 16,000, if I'm not mistaken. So
This was a requirement that you had to do, wasn't it?
yeah. So, general accounting things that you have to do to keep things in order. So 963 DPHHS for $2,866.86. Again, that's just our CSCT match for December and January. Just like to highlight that so that we're continuing to keep track of it to make sure that we are getting that full reimbursement. It's really hard to kind of track because it's usually by the end of the year that we can account for everything, because they charge things at such different times. And so I know it's really stressful for Suzanne at times to try to keep track of all of that kind of stuff, but just noting that keeps it present for us to make sure and be double checking that we're getting that full reimbursement. 19966 general distributing, $5,282.28. You'll notice in there a good chunk of that was for welding curtains and screens. That was paid for out of advancing egg money. And so Caleb can speak to a little bit of that probably, but basically it'll just help with the light from the welding so that he's not blinded by the end of the day since he's in there. So it'll just kind of add kind of a safety measure, extra safety measure for that.
But yeah, grant money that you set aside, and so that was a very timely deal, and so getting some purchase of the on tracks. So waiting a few more parts, then we'll get it installed. But I have everything but what I need to start this year. So love with blue curtains in there.
All the way down at the bottom, 19968 Arlo bus sales, 1340. And another bus challenge and repair. Let's look at that on page 4. I didn't highlight anything. On page 5, At the top, Northwestern Energy for $9,125.32 for gas and electricity for January, and that was actually down $1,000 from December and was down $2,000 from last year. However, looking at the weather for the next couple of days, that might change next month. Unfortunately, it doesn't look warm for sure. The next one down, 19977 for 6699. Basically what this is it's a OPI educational savings account that we are required to pay. So basically, if we have students that were on our A and B count the previous year, this was the legislative update from 2023, but they just kind of worked out all of the details to get it put in place. But basically, if they were enrolled last year, that we got to count kind of A and B for those students, and they were on an IEP, they could apply for what's called a educational savings account, which basically takes money that gets put into a savings account that they can, families that are homeschooling now can show receipts to be reimbursed. And so basically this money goes into a savings account. And this one is actually from January through the end of this school year, and it will be just over $4,000 that we will pay into that. So in the coming years, if we have students that are doing that, it will come out $7,000 to $8,000 about is what we are calculating. So we'll talk a little bit about some of the legislative updates, but some of those is, some of that money diverting or coming out of the general fund going into, different situations, whether it be homeschool students with an IEP or just homeschool students or students that are in charter schools and any of those different types of things. So it has a real potential to have some significant costs to public schools. And so that is our first, we just have one that we are paying. And so I think I was at a superintendent meeting, and one of the schools said that they were fearful of it coming close to $100,000 that could come out depending on the amount of things that that could have been an over exaggeration where they were just feeling like on this situation, this wasn't something that we could have planned for in the budget. We can try to plan for that. I think they can apply in August and December of each year. So we have 2 opportunities to apply in this particular situation. And so, it could have some potential to have a real impact. 19978 pumps tire service for $4,210.64. And that's just for bus tires. All the way down at the bottom, 19983 US Bank Trust for $60,739.52. That's the intercap loan payment and interest. And I'm talking to Suzanne, and I'm looking kind of ahead. It looks like June will be our last payment for that particular intercap one. So, which will be great.
Yeah, it was kind of the second loan we had. The bond issue, the big loan payment, and then the intercap was the second one. I think it should stay.
Sure, it is the state, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. 19987 Yellowstone Woods and Girls Ranch for $10,920.38. You'll see there that some of that is the November and December CSCT services. Again, there's a difference when we got a therapist as well as a behavior therapist. And so again, we should get the full reimbursement for that. And then the second part is tuition. If we have students that are receiving services at different places, this YBGR is included, that we do pay those educational services because they are residents of our district. If that makes sense. And those were the things that I highlighted. If you have any questions or want me to spend those. Mhm.
I would move to approve the claims submitted.
Then moved and seconded to pay the claims presented. Any question or discussion? Those in favor say aye. Those opposed, the same. Okay, public comment, I have a couple, we have a state champion sitting at the table with the other thing to say, which is
Awesome.
really darn cool, and second place in state for the whole youth too, so. What would you like to say? Would you like to tell us anything about it? Brag on yourself, Casey, you sure?
Not really brag on myself, but brag on, I guess, my team. Just because it kind of started like when I was a freshman, like we didn't have a stage before that. So just like last year, we got third place overall in state, and we've gotten divisional state champs for the last 2 years. And so it's just really awesome to see how it's growing, how it's been doing really well. And Miss Plett, she's an awesome coach, doing a really good job. And like she really has been trying to fill shoes that she didn't know what they were, like she just kind of came in and was like, yep, I'm gonna do it, just because she told us about this. She was like, I wanted to do this because I heard you guys complaining that you guys were working on a coach, and I didn't think that was very fair, so I did it because I didn't think I thought it was important to you guys, so that was awesome. And hopefully they can take on the overall first place next year. I believe in them.
Diane McCabe was her partner in one, and then was also a state.
And then she got universal.
Super. Really cool, thank you. The other thing I wanted to say is, Max Neild, who was an English teacher here for years and years, and then was on the school board for about, I think, at least 20 years, probably. Passed away on January 19th. He was a great guy, Max was. When I first came on the school board, he was on the board with me. We had a lot of learning I learned from Mr. Max. So, plus he's a great guy. Plus he was an excellent English teacher when I was in high school and speech. Learned how to diagram sentences by golly. Anyway, I think they're not going to do a service for him until June 7th, is what Rick told me. So we might want to try to send some flowers or something when and if that comes. Any other comments or communication?
This was in 13 wrestlers. Is that right, Brock? Are you going to talk about that in your report
So you
too?
can talk about it.
So I didn't see you here earlier, but then I looked at my.
I just walked in from the booster.
Come up to the table.
I didn't want to.
But I think you said 13. Is that right?
13, 7 boys and 6 girls. So, girls side is kind of even because it's all class. So on the boys side, the top 8 make it. And the girls side, it depends on number of entries across the 6 divisionals that are posted. So, one weight might have 5 that can get in, the other weight might have 3. So
Really? Are they going to change that?
I think the only way hopeful is if we get the double A's out from there. Yeah, it's hard on, most of our girls received a medal at the divisional meet. Some of them didn't get to go. It's fine. That qualified and stuff, so,
Well, that's too bad,
yeah,
man.
but very proud of them all. They competed very well. I know they had some sort of flu bug or something going around, so. Yeah, it's pretty exciting for them.
Browning had some pretty special medals that they gave for the champion. They hand beaded the medal.
Oh.
So it was really cool. So yeah.
It was a good tournament. Somebody said Browning did a good
Yeah,
job putting
yeah.
it on.
Everything I heard was great.
Good. Thank you. Any other comments or communication? Go on to the superintendent's report. Megan, would you like to move Paul up to the front?
We can move 6.9, which is my addition to the front. So just shift over and we can computer.
Okay, I'll make this real short because the message is actually short. So we've agreed that we need to raise a mill levy, and I am not a marketing person. I'm not necessarily the face of the school to get this out, but so I need help from the board. But bottom line is, I mean, I think the approach, excuse me, that we did need to do this all out marketing, the flyers, websites, everything that it says here. And then the thing that, this is my opinion, not being a marketing person, but I think our approach to this has to be a little bit different than the elementary school did. I'd like to show how real world this is for our students, not just that we don't have any money. We're doing more than replacing a Chromebook. There's a lot that's involved. So this education on cost and responsibility for keeping our students safe. Well, I don't think the public knows probably that door security, fire alarm security, cameras, all of that stuff, not to mention antivirus, firewalls, content filters. The lion's share of what we pay for in license fees is for the safety of the children. And I don't know that that's known. So my whole point is basically more than the money we don't have, how are we going to protect our students and prepare them for the future? So just take this, these are just some of my thoughts here, and I'm gonna flash through these, but this is, what risks do our student have? Well, and these, again, the information part of it isn't as important as the direction we're going with this, just illustrating the rise in ransomware attacks, malware attacks, all that stuff. You can see the percentages there, but I don't know that the public knows that either. That, we're at the window of a crime scene all the time with our computers. And then, of course, after high school, there's a large percentage of jobs that have some kind of tech requirement. 88% in Montana have some kind of digital skills. I'm sure that number would go down if you were citing just the IT professionals or, heavy computer use, but there's some kind of sense for us to be teaching this and to be well equipped to teach this so we can prepare our kids for the future. It's not happening in the outside world alone. I mean, just look at our school. All these tests are required by state. None of them have paper and none of them have funding for devices to take the test. So we got slapped in the face with that with the ACT a couple of years ago. The last time we had a technology levy was 2007. That's when Apple released its first iPhone, and MySpace was 4 years old. That's a long time ago.
Caleb was in high school.
Yeah.
Grabbing in high school here.
No, I did some additional research on this just to find out how cyber attacks differ from 2007 to today. The only remarkable cyber attack they had in 2007, the only one that was written about was some large cyber attack in Estonia. And now we're at like 4,500 a day in every town in America. It's crazy. A lot of curricula are being offered online or supported heavily by online curricula. So these are the facts here. Our current tech levy only supports third of our annual expenses, and that's going down. In other words, it's not going to cover a full third shortly. Lock systems, fire systems, all included. Devices get old. Like I said, they get old after 5 years, and ours have been 5 years old for 5 years. So anyway, our annual license fees exceed 1/2 the current tech levy. Right now with the current license fees, it's going to be almost all of our $50,000 tech levy. So this is kind of what I want to people make it. Sorry, I went to the wrong spot. My bad. just putting it in perspective, something everybody can understand, mobile phones are not unlike our larger technology product. They have to be updated, they get old, they get broken. If you don't keep up, you're behind, obviously, so. I just need some help from people smarter than me in the marketing area on how to get this information out. I know we said, newspaper pamphlets, things like that, but how does that work? And I don't know if any of you know marketing people that you could direct me towards.
I wonder about Lawrence.
I was thinking Lawrence as well.
You know,
The
Okay,
thing with Lawrence that could be challenging to the people that we want to reach is he's all about technology. But the people that you probably want to get this in front of are gonna want something like this. Is there the population that
Yeah.
probably isn't?
yeah, we're digital immigrants, right? You still need paper.
Yeah, because it's the people that are gonna get out and vote for it, my age and younger.
at my age.
or your age. But there's a lot of people that maybe don't understand it that are older than me that aren't gonna, unless you put it on Facebook, they actually are on Facebook.
The ones that are having their kids and grandkids help them with their cell.
Exactly. I think it has to be a combination, but Lawrence would be good to at least have a conversation with. But I think you have to have some print material. Is there budgeting for this? Is there any budget? No. If we wanted to do a mailer to the constituents that would vote, like, I'm just curious from a cost perspective, how many people would that be? You
How
know,
many ballots go out? Close to 3,000, don't
is
they?
it 3,000?
And I did put in, thinking that I would be bringing this to the table just in terms of election, just the cost of the election. And obviously, depending on, all of the costs that are associated, there might be some extra that's in there. We could utilize some of that for some of the mailings and some of that kind of stuff. Plus, we have reduced our mailings very significantly. We've actually only done one mass mailing this year because we've relied heavily on email, which I think I've got a lot of positive feedback. So
I think parents probably are. I'm talking
yes,
that older.
yes,
Yeah.
that outside of
Kids
the
in here.
generation, and I think we could also pay to put a thing in the paper, that just has that information that's in there as well.
And there's how well read it is. I'm sure it's not as well read as the Village Tribune, but our website, I can do scrolling marquees with some of those graphics of, yeah,
And Leah, the
this is why I didn't do very well with my own business because I'm not very good at marketing.
Well, Paul, would you be willing to be like interviewed, as I'm thinking like Wally, who does more than the score? It'd be awesome to have you get on
I'm
there
willing
and
to do absolutely anything
maybe bring a student with you
except for
and.
things that Mr. Hankins says. No, that's the thing is I would love to be as wholeheartedly involved as I can. If somebody just gives me direction, then I'm.
Lee's morning radio show is a lot of listeners, that 7:30 show or whatever.
You could be on there several times.
If you print the flyers for the Dillonite, there's however many flyers every day, it costs like $20. If you print them, if you have them do it, it's fairly expensive. I mean, not expensive, it's way more than that, but if you print them yourself and take them to them, it's 1,000 copies or whatever, and then it's $20. That's pretty cheap.
District 10 has it in there every day, don't they? In Wabash paper, I think they're every day there.
Which you would think is a bad thing, but never hurts to have. It's helping us get the word out about tech lifts. I know ultimately the voting booth might be a competitive thing, or they'll look instead of $8 a year at 16 because of the two schools, but the word is out there. Right.
I would imagine almost every school's running a new tech levy around the state, aren't they?
You're seeing
Quite a few more. Last year.
I got this information from a school called West Valley. I think it's up in the northwest. Anyway, they got their, it's what Kalispell area.
That's in Kalispell.
It is, okay. Anyway, they were successful and she gave me these materials, but she said the key to it was big community involvement. Whatever clubs we have,
Yeah.
just spreading the word even
Mhm.
more than just flyer. We're a small town.
Yeah.
We all know when somebody's in trouble in this town.
Yeah, like Rotary's always looking for a speaker. That'd be a great one to go. And they're always calling in people to speak. Like, that's what
Well,
we'll arrange that.
And we'll need to enlist the students and the faculty and the staff too, you know, to help us as best as you can.
Student council is what I was thinking.
Right.
Huge, yeah. The Booster Club, can they do that kind of thing? Just help get the word out.
Fred Chenard and Gary Haverfield, are they in Lions or Rotary? I don't know which one
I
they
think
are.
they're
Lions, I think.
We don't
But-
like Gary speaking about technology though.
They said that. They said that, at their meeting last week, some District 10 people were there. I think Tom Welch and Randy Shipman maybe and talked about
With
it.
the Lions, yeah.
So I think we need to get started on here pretty quick if we can.
Mhm.
They actually have some community people involved in formed committees and 2 or 3 people go around and speak at the various clubs and those sorts of things, I think. So I don't know what direction we want to go or when we want to do it. The time is catching up to us really quick, so.
Yeah, I mean, we can baby steps into it. I mean, I can go get stuff on the website at a minimum. That's something I can do right now. And then,
Maybe if you could contact Lee and try to get on the radio.
Okay.
Good.
yep. And then maybe, you know, what I'm thinking of Morrisville, is that his name?
Lawrence,
Just verbiage would be good.
Yeah.
right. Right, just helping to write the content that's people
I
would.
think Wally thought that'd be a good one.
Oh, well, yeah.
Wally would be good, just even because he loves to interview people for more than the score, and you actually have a lot of people that watch it. I mean, it's
I worked
locally,
with Wally for a long time.
yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
try to contact him and then at some point in time, we do want to get some brochures, I suppose, in Womack's paper and.
Right. I wonder if, I wonder if Matt Rafferty would be willing to volunteer a little time, just because that's what he does, is,
That'd be great if he would,
you know.
especially with Katie
communications.
working here.
I
you know,
know,
that'd be.
Maybe not.
just a little
Yeah.
part-time,
I think you would.
yeah.
In case anything you
Communications.
students can think of that would help or the council or whatever, and same with the faculty, anything you guys can try to help to get the word out on this deal and
Robotics
Are you talking about like posters, like making like flyers? Is that what you're doing?
interviews, talking about you guys coming up with
radio.
whatever you.
anything you can help.
How do you get this out there? How do you get this information out to as many people as possible?
I mean, you could put flyers.
Even communicating with the immediate students.
You could do it over.
And another thing that they did in West Valley was they had community meetings and we would make ourselves available to answer questions. That in kind of a board meeting setting.
If you could get a little something put together, just from a handout perspective, you know, we could have it at some of there's only a handful of home games, so we could have something there.
Yeah.
That's a great idea.
That's a great idea.
You know, have students
Yeah.
there, you need them out when
Handing
they
them
walk
out, and
in,
that could be huge.
you know. Well, like
We've got-
even, we've got, not this week, but next week, we've got 3 home games left, basically. Basketball.
We have a
games.
double hitter, both with Butte Central and with Hamilton, which will bring a lot of people.
That'll bring a lot of people.
Okay.
But I mean, if students would be willing to stand and hand out, like, reader, but
Yeah, I mean, like,
definitely.
even they would do it. Also, if you're like service opportunity, then like, because I know there's a lot of honor society kids that haven't been doing their game for them.
And honestly, the students are the ones that are gonna benefit from it the most.
Yeah.
The
So
technical
if you were to be like,
Get the-
hey, if you did this, then that counts as one of your game.
Well, and maybe you could have some stuff, you know, just handouts at this.
Give us flyers, Paul, I'll give you.
This would be a good
couple of
opportunity.
them.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
They're built there before they're about to.
Showing some of Truman's busted Chromebooks of the home games and maybe
Yeah.
we get some big guys.
Yeah, we found a Chromebook underneath the bridge over here by Poindexter. Apparently done with their homework and just tossed it, so. Well, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Paul.
And if there's anything we can do, I mean, is you just
Just think whatever you can come up.
just send an email, here's a couple
Yeah,
other
yeah,
ideas.
yeah.
Mhm. Here's a contact for Rotary, here's a,
There you go.
I'm happy to put together some thoughts that I have.
Perfect. I wrote down a note called Gary Haver. Not to speak, but.
Yeah, fair.
So if you guys would just email me or email Paul. His email is the same as mine, it's Pete Kelsey, but either way, or both of us. Getting it. Getting it. Go to it.
It's gotta happen, 'cause I gotta sit, I'm telling you, we'll be able to pay license fees next year. That may be about it, so. All right.
Okay, thank you, Paul.
All right, 6.1.
License fees.
FFA alumni banquet request. So Mr. Igo is here to talk to the board about its upcoming FFA alumni banquet in Austin and will be asking permission to allow the serving of alcohol at the banquet again this year per board policy. Board approval is required when our students are participating at an event. Alcohol is being served. I think it's been about 3 years that we've done this, but this will be an action item at the end of the meeting. And the banquet will be March 1st at 6 o'clock at the University of Montana.
Yeah, and not so much that the kids are gonna be serving alcohol, right?
No, they aren't.
That's just,
They-
just that, our FFA alumni, parents, boosters, whatever to call them, they put this on for us every year and raise a little bit of money. And since we've moved out of the armory, we found that we've had some vendors that are willing to do a little cash social aspect to it, which is a pretty minor part of it. Moved into the college last year, if you were able to make it a very successful event. And so just asking to be able to do that again and have kids at that event again. FFA alumni people are gonna put that out regardless, but it'd be nice to have kids there, I guess, so. There's choir there, we already sold about 180 of our 250 tickets. Mr. Truman's been helping with some signs that we've been making for table sponsors. We got some neat things. We're already pre-sold about 14, 15 tables. So. Pretty great event and all that goes right back to kids for scholarships. Let my hands out $10,000 to $15,000 in scholarships in the spring. At the banquet, and they offset a bunch of our travel expenses and things for state FFA and national. So great event, a lot of great projects. Hope to see you there if you can make it.
Thanks, Ken.
6.2, the 2025-26 registration course guide and the registration process. So included in your packet is a copy of the proposed course registration booklet. There's not a whole lot of changes this year. I'll go over them in just a second, not in too much detail, but just share a couple of things. Our intention has been for the last couple of years to provide all students with a schedule for the 25-26 school year prior to them checking out at the end of this year. So Ms. Hacker will be working with our 10th through 12th graders to get them registered for classes in the coming weeks. And then we will decide on course offerings and work together to build the schedule. Mr. Hankins will be talking a little bit about the 8th grade registration night in his report, but I just wanted to visit with you a little bit about our overall process, and the course guide will be an action item for you at the end of the meeting. So in the packet, anything that was in yellow was just added. For the most part, a lot of the added text was not added information. It was just providing more information. So for example, on page 3, just attaining a minimum of 44 credits was already in there. And then in parentheses, we're just adding all students or 48 credits for college prep credits. That was explained later on, but Mrs. Hacker just wanted to clarify a couple of things. So she just kind of read through it and just added a couple of things to kind of clarify or reword different things. So down at the bottom of page 3, important information about earning credits, just important that families know that students don't earn credit until semester, so they get a grade or a report card at the end of each quarter, but the credit comes at the semester grade. Students must be successfully pass the class with a D- or higher. 1 credit is earned for each class each semester. A half credit may be earned for the following classes, so our skills lab classes, our office aide, counseling aide, activities director, and library aide all get a half a credit. And this really comes into play, and it's important for it to be in here because when we start talking about academic eligibility, which we don't have to talk about too terribly much, kids for every Wright County have to pass 5 1-credit classes. So if they've taken a half credit class, that credit does not count. And so it has been a challenge in a few cases over the years. But as you kind of looked through there, most of the first few pages were just kind of adding some different text. On page 5. We just updated the new language with the Montana University admissions policy. They changed a lot of those different things. So just kind of updating that to reflect that. And that goes to page 6. Anything obviously that was crossed out, just taking out. As we get into the dual credit section, just changing all of the concurrent credit to dual enrollment. That seems to be more of what the language that the students are hearing from colleges and those different types of things. So just kind of changing that to reflect that. We do have a couple of new classes this year, Wood 2, which we've offered many years in the past. We kind of took that out and just had the 1 semester of Wood 1 for our freshmen and our sophomores. But what we're finding is those that take it that first semester, some of them would really like to take it that second semester. So adding that Wood 2 as a semester class. It used to be that they were year-long classes, and so now it'll be Wood 1 as a semester and then Wood 2 as a semester. So those students could complete a full year. To keep our schedule kind of open, they don't have to have Wood 1 to get into Wood 2, right? Yeah, so that's one of them. The counseling aide was added in there, just as there's more and more responsibilities put on our counselor, just getting the opportunity for a student aide, plus they can learn some good workplace learning opportunities by doing some of that. So we've had an activities director aide, we've had an office aide, we've had a library aide, so now just having a specified counseling aide, and again, that would be at a half a credit. And then Ms. Van Slyke asked if we could add into their concert choir, which is page, let's see if I can find it there. On page 31, and so basically it's a mixed choir, so both boys and girls could participate in that. We wanted to see what kind of an interest that we could get and how that would impact the treble chorus or the men's chorus, because obviously having the men's chorus and the treble chorus would be super important. If that was to be offered, it also would tell us that we were having more and more students that were looking towards adding additional music credits, which could then possibly justify an extra class period for Ms. Van Slyke in that area, but we would have to look at all of those things. And again, this just kind of gives us an idea as to what kids are interested in taking, if that makes sense. And then you'll notice that there are a couple classes that we did take out of there. They're just classes that have been in the course guide for a couple of years. We haven't offered them because they haven't had enough interest. So one of the examples of that was sociology. Those single semester classes in different areas are really hard because they take the 1 semester and then there isn't something that second semester to fill that class period. And so that was one. Chemistry was another one that was taken out. And really we fulfilled that need. The last couple of years we haven't done general chemistry as we've gone to our sophomores taking intro to chemistry and physics. And then of course we have the advanced chemistry that students can take from there. They have an opportunity to get that dual credit. We just haven't had a lot of kids that are wanting to take just general chemistry and not try that opportunity at the possibility of the dual enrollment. And so that one was taken out. Let's try to get it. I noted a couple, but I think that was
Oh, sociology.
Yeah, so anyways, not a lot of changes. Most of them, like I said, are just kind of adding some additional information and cleaning up different language. But there are new classes. And of course, once the kids register, we take those numbers and we try to select the classes that have the most interest and offer those. And our general rule of thumb is if they don't have 10 kids that are interested in them, we don't even consider trying to offer them. We have had a couple that we have, for example, physics has always been right on that edge. And oftentimes once it's offered, because it's just that one class period, it's hard to get a high number of kids that are in there. But the thought of not offering the physics class just doesn't sit well with me. And so we do have the option with Montana Digital Academy. They can service that need, but when we have great people that can teach that, it's just nice to be able to offer it. And I've found that once you get rid of something, it's hard to get it back. So that's were some of the different things that I noted. If you guys have any questions, let me know. And like you said, you guys will be voting on that in the meeting. So 6.3 in October and February of each school year, we report on the number of students enrolled in our school to OPI. This data is used to determine our average number of belonging, or more commonly heard as A and B, which is used to calculate our school funding. We had our February count date on Monday, February 3rd, and we had 329 students. And our October count was 341. So we actually are down quite a bit from our October count. The data from these two count dates, there's some special formula that they use to get the magic number for this year. And so will give us our A and B for the current year. We can choose to use the current year A and B or the 3-year average. Last year we used the current year. Most of the years prior we were using the 3-year average, but as our numbers have continued to increase, we have used the current year. So whichever is higher, we can choose. We will get an official count that will be used to calculate our A and B for next month. Our 23-24 A and B was 335, and I would imagine we'd be pretty close. We might be up a little bit from there. So, we have 2 part-time students. We have the one ESA student, which is the Educational Savings Account student. We have 8 out-of-district students that are coming from other districts that are our students. In this semester, we don't have any Montana Youth Challenge kids. I will say on that count date, we had a high number of absences, so I'm a little concerned as to what that will look like, because of course that's all tied to our accreditation. They kind of take those small snapshots to get the attendance that they use on there. Monday was a pretty significant weather day, and we had lots of sickness, and so we just had a lot of kids that were out. So it'll be curious to see how that goes. But next month we'll have what our A and B will be. 6.4 activities committee recap and recommendations. So we did have an activities committee where myself and Mike Richardson and Gary and Phil and Brock got together and just kind of talked about a couple of different things. The biggest one that I was bringing to the table was obviously our activity bus drivers have shared some frustration about the amount that they are getting paid, and just any way that we could look at to try to increase that. Obviously, we value those people significantly. We put them out, entrust them with our kids, and ask them to do a lot. So if there's a way that we can increase that. We did kind of look around the state, and we found that we are below what a lot of schools are paying. Maybe not as significantly as maybe what they have been hearing. So of course they ask other bus drivers what they're getting paid. And some of the things that they find out is maybe they're getting paid $20 an hour or $23 an hour, but that's while they're driving. And so any sitting time might be at minimum wage or might be at, a different rate. So when you average that all together, it doesn't come out to be the full 20, whatever, dollars an hour. And so, but when we looked at ours, we were paying anywhere from about minimum wage to right around $15 an hour. Would you say, Suzanne, is that what we talked about? but probably most commonly around the $12.50 range. And so we looked at the possibility if we could even raise that to $15 an hour. Kind of looking at that from a budget standpoint, it's probably about $15,000 to $20,000 extra, just based on that increase. It would be paid from the time they left the bus barn to the time that they got back, or like to a hotel. So like if they were traveling overnight, it wouldn't be 24 hours. It would just be to when they parked the bus at the hotel and those different types of things. We looked at similar thing, could we pay them drive time versus sit time? But just from a perspective of the district clerk and trying to figure that out, or Tara trying to calculate all of those different things, that $15 seemed to be a good place to start possibly. And so we talked about that. We talked about meals in the postseason. Right now we're paying $10 a meal for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Is that something that we should continue to do? Obviously, that's for divisionals and state, and that's for all of the Montana High School Association activities. So that includes state music festival and state basketball. And it's really difficult to kind of get the amount because every year it's different. We might have 4 teams that qualify for state one year, and we might have 2 that qualify the next year or something like that. But we talked about taking them all out, or is it something where we could go to maybe breakfast and lunch and dinner, and maybe take out the breakfast. So I don't think we have a good enough answer to really make a recommendation. But one of the things that we talked about is when we invest in our programs, that pays off in the outcomes that we see academically as well. And so we want to be careful not to just rip the bottom out, but at the same time be responsible and try to take a look at some of those different things. And so I'm just kind of talking about them so you guys can kind of think about it. And if you have suggestions as we're continuing to move forward, obviously $10 a meal doesn't cover a meal, and that's hard. And I think Booster Club even looked at it at one point, like, what if we supplemented at $5, an extra $5 a meal? And they were just surprised at how quickly that adds up and how pretty much a good chunk of their budget was going to go to meals. And that just wasn't what they felt was the best use of those earnings, which I agree with. And so,
Well, it's amazing. Man, in our committee meeting, I was surprised the amount of money that we spend if we go to divisional and state in boys and girls basketball. By the time you're paying for the band and the cheerleaders and the athletes, and boy, it gets thousands of dollars really quickly.
and then of course, just travel costs have gone up. I mean, just to stay in a hotel room, in Bozeman or, Missoula or wherever it is that you're staying. It used to be that hotels would come with a pretty competitive price because they knew they could fill the hotels at kind of an out of season time. Whereas right now there is no out of season time in Montana. And so you're talking about Bozeman, and fine, you don't want to come for $200 a night. I can fill it for $3, And so it just makes it really hard. And so figure this out one of these days. But anyways, so that was, some things that we're just kind of talking about, and our hope will be to have a plan, at the end of the year. Another thing we talked about is the activity pass. So for years and years and years, we were charging $40 for any kid that wanted to participate. It was a one-time fee. If they participated in basketball, volleyball, and track, they paid $40. It got them into all home games. I think it was about 3 years ago that we upped that to $50. And I think some schools are going to a per activity, like $50 per activity. We talked about maybe just upping it to $100. I think we have sold 208 activity passes, so that's just over $10,000 that we're generating through activity passes. If we were to up that, that would be generating $20,000. And so by just doing that, that could help maybe cover some of the extra costs that we're putting towards, bus drivers and some of that kind of stuff. And so probably we'll come to you with a proposal to increase that activity fee at some some level. As we kind of look at that. And then we also talked about we're getting more and more requests for co-ops. And of course, you know, as we take, it's not that we don't want to be kind neighbors, but as we take on more, you know, students and develop more programs and support, you know, programs in other schools for different things, maybe looking at putting into our co-op agreements some fees. We threw around a bunch of different numbers. One of the things that kind of stuck was about $1,000 a sport, and that's whether you have, like, if you want to have a co-op that year and the opportunity for your students to participate, it would be $1,000. Brock and I talked a little bit and thought maybe $750 of sport if it's a sport that has a co-head coach, so like cross country, if it's boys and girls cross country, or it's boys and girls tennis, so that would be $1,500 instead of for both instead of $2,000 if they were to do boys basketball and girls basketball. But if they wanted to do boys basketball and girls basketball, it would be $1,000 for each, because of course we have both full coaching staffs. And of course, you know, Brock puts all of the stuff together, so it's his time that he's sending out to all of the schools, whether or not they have people or students. If they have students, you know, just travel costs and those different types of things. But then on top of that, $250 per student that participates. Now, they wouldn't be responsible for the activity fee on top of that, which they are right now. It would just be $250 per student. And so it also makes them, you know, really decide if they want to have that activity and not just kind of say, oh, I've got one kid that's thinking that they want to participate this year. Let's, you know, Brock goes through all the work of developing the agreement, and then maybe, you know, nobody comes in. And so again, it's not to not be good neighbors, but at the same time, it's to be fiscally responsible and make sure that we are doing what we can to provide a need for them. And obviously that's quite a savings if they were to have, say, boys basketball, for example. If we had a co-op in boys basketball, you know, they would have head coach, assistant coach, they'd have all of the travel fees. So $1,000 plus $250 a student athlete is really not that significant. And so, you know, I think how many co-ops do we have with Twin right now, Brock? Just
When
70.
yeah, 7 there, we have nine co-ops
we have
right now.
9 co-ops right now. And
What's
so
And yeah, I think it gives them a little skin in the game as well, instead of just
Did you get a chance to visit with any of the schools and tell them that we're thinking about doing that?
Yeah.
How did they, what was their reception?
I think they're like, okay, yeah, we understand. Obviously, we're gonna have to weigh the options on what's best for us. They understand that we're taking on the cost of this, and they're just gonna have to weigh if that's something that they want to offer to their students. You know, I can see some of them going away, and maybe some that are more popular in their districts sticking around,
Sure.
which is okay.
You bet.
Yeah.